Welcome back on this Wednesday as we continue looking at Nahum. We are going through all of chapter 2 today. And as we look at this passage, especially at the beginning and throughout this chapter especially, we see short little phrases. And actually in English, they're probably longer than they were in Hebrew. And this is one of those trademarks of Nahum's style. Short phrases, which often show the urgency of his message and the vastness of God's glory in what he is doing to the Assyrians. Let's pick up with verse 1. The scatterer has come against you. Man the ramparts, watch the road, dress for battle, and collect your strength. For the Lord is restoring the majesty of Jacob as the majesty of Israel. For plunderers have plundered them and ruined their branches. Warning for Assyria that of the coming siege. There is these short phrases, again, are Nahum's style as they show what is happening. Man the ramparts, watch the road, dress for battle. Get ready because here it comes. And then the second verse, this is the why. Because the Lord is restoring the majesty of Jacob. The Lord is at work restoring his nation, restoring his people to the glory that he desires for them. Let's continue, beginning with verse 3. The shield of his mighty men is red. His soldiers are clothed in scarlet. The chariots come with flashing metal. On the day he musters them, the cypress spears are brandished. The chariots race madly through the streets. They rush to and fro through the square. They gleam like torches. They dart like lightning. He remembers his officers as they stumble as they go. They hasten to the wall. The siege tower is set up. These verses 3 through 5 show first of all, the incoming army to destroy. They are close enough to see. Then the defenses are shown in verses 4 and 5. Everything is set up to go, but yet there's some stumbling going on, rushing to and fro, darting around like lightning, like they don't know what they're doing. And as we see in verse 5, even though Nineveh was thought to be a city that could not be destroyed, we see what happens. Let's look at verse 6. The river gates are opened. The palace melts away. The mistress is stripped. She is carried off. Her slave girls lamenting, moaning like doves, beating their breast. Nineveh is like a pool whose waters run away. Halt, halt, they cry, but none turns back. The city was destroyed by the Babylonians in an amazing ploy on how they did this. They dammed up the river. It sits on the Tigris River. They dammed it up upstream. And then when the time was right, when it was filled up, they opened up the dam, made it flood that area, and the flood destroyed the city. But notice here that the Lord that Nahum is not talking about the Babylonians doing this. He's talking about how the Lord will do this. It is the Lord who wins this battle, who is destroying the city of Damascus, using the Babylonians for that task, much like he used the Assyrians against Israel and against Judah. The Babylonians then would be destroyed by the Persians and the Medes in one night. That's a story for another time. As we look at this, the city is breached with water. The analogy, the mistress is stripped. She is carried off, the mistress being the city of Nineveh, the evil city. Her slave girls are lamenting. The people there are lamenting the destruction of that city. And then verse 9, plunder the silver, plunder the gold. There is no end of treasure or wealth of all precious things. The city would then be plundered, destroyed and plundered and left alone. Verse 10, desolate, desolation and ruin, Hearts melt and knees tremble. Anguish is in all loins, and all faces grow pale. Where is the lion's den, the feeding place of the young lions, where the lions and the lioness went, where his cubs were, with none to disturb? The lion tore enough for his cubs and strangled prey for his lionesses. He filled his caves with prey, but his dens were torn flesh. The results of this future siege, again, which would happen 20 to 30 years later, would be desolation and ruin. Verses 11 and 12 are really a mocking. A lion, the sign of strength and power and destruction. Where is the lion's den? It is no more. The city has been destroyed. The power of the Assyrians has been taken away. Verse 11. Behold, I am against you, declares the Lord of hosts, and I will burn your chariots in smoke, and the sword shall devour your young lions. I will cut off your prey from the earth, and the voice of your messengers shall no longer be heard. A reminder that it is the Lord who is bringing that destruction upon Nineveh because of their sins and their ruthlessness against God's people. It is God alone who stands against Nineveh. Nahum is speaking these words before the fact to show that it would be the Lord, and the Lord by his power, which would bring an end to this nation. Come back on tomorrow, Thursday, as we start looking at that last chapter and read more about this prophecy against the nation of Assyria, against the people of Nineveh.